Coming up today, Zach makes a birthday wish that sees bunting disappear from baseball entirely. Because the wish of avoiding me for an hour on your birthday is not coming true. I'm sorry I can't deliver that, but bunting might be on the table. I don't know. Happy birthday, man.
Oh, I wouldn't want to spend it with anybody else.
That's sad.
I got nothing.
I mean, the present the Guardians gave you this weekend surely wasn't anything to feel great about. So how about a show where we get back together and talk about all the bad things about this ugly weekend? That's a great way to spend your birthday. Well, welcome to the Selbius Godcast. I'm TJ, that's Zach, the birthday boy. And, yeah, this is a weekend series against the Braves at home where the first two games, it kind of felt like a series where you played an Atlanta team that's getting right and healthy, and I mean that healthy in actual health, but also health and playing like they should have the entire season. I looked at the record, and I looked at the team on the field, and there was a disconnect there because that looked like a really good team. If they just wiped the standings today and we were all starting from scratch, that would look like a team I wouldn't want to play, actually. I know they're still battling the pitching staff and making sure they have enough bodies to get through the season, but that offense looks like got some players in there. So the first two games of the series, they're due for stubbing their toe a little bit. Finale, that one got under my skin a bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of... They scored one run in the first two games, and I will say the Braves lineup maybe looks like a powerhouse, but the pitching staff, it's got holes, and you just didn't score. Like that game Friday night, like that's when you got to win. I thought Cantillo didn't throw enough strikes, but like pitched well enough, got out of it, and the bullpen did its job to put you in position to win. And certainly Sunday, that's just one of those self-inflicted sloppy losses that we saw plenty when they were losing 10 games in a row. It's funny. There is a listener to our podcast who I was chatting with over the weekend, I think Sunday morning, and in the Guardians clubhouse, and he asked if I was going on the road trip this week, and I said, no, I'm skipping this one, and he said something like, oh, so what are you going to do? You're going to write some big picture features that jinx us? And so like, hey, you get the bit, you follow along. Yeah, that is what I tend to do, but didn't even let me be the one who does it for you. Didn't even let it get that far. Yeah, I would have loved to jinx you guys, or at least gotten to write what I wanted to write about how all the behind the scenes of how you turned your season around and how this has been an incredible feat of handling adversity and perseverance. And instead, it's that was a rough weekend, and it was a rough weekend at a time where it seems like everybody else that you're chasing or contending with played well, and you lose 3 games in the race in the blink of an eye. And so, no, it wasn't even in my power this time. They did it to themselves, and they did it against an Atlanta team that's probably better than their record indicates. But that's not an excuse, because their pitching beat you, and their pitching is not their calling card. And some guy named Nacho beat you, and Nick Allen, who's like one of the worst hitters in baseball, beat you, and just a rough showing.
Well, I guess that's probably why the first 2 games didn't bother me as much. Like I am understanding that they're not going to continue to play at this incredible pace they've been on since that losing streak. I'm not delusional here thinking that that's them now. I know we've said that many times on this show that the truth is in the middle. They're not as bad as they were
when they lost 10 in a row.
Thank you.
They're not as good as they were when they swept the Mets.
Yeah. So I'm not. I don't misunderstand what's happening here. And at the same time, they've been fortunate that all the teams that they were chasing, maybe not all of them, but several of them, were also stubbing their toe at the time where you were playing some of your best baseball. And that's what happens over the length of 162. It's why you try to avoid 10-game losing streaks, because it sucks when you have to use one of your best streaks, if not your best stretch of baseball, to erase a really rotten stretch to just get you back a little bit above water. That's the unfortunate part, and it makes it so every time you get swept this late in the year, it's critical. It's massive, especially as it's happening as the other team that you're chasing has a really good weekend. I am not going to fall into the trap here. I've already done that this year where I'm going to say, it's over, it's done. I've already written this team off, and they've proven me to look foolish for doing that, so I'm not going to make that same mistake here. But the first 2 games didn't bother me because I understand you're good. You run into a team like Atlanta that's finally hitting their stride, and their offense, as you're seeing the bottom of their lineup, it looks hot. So, okay, you have that happen. Your offense fails you in a game or two, fine. You're in position there. You got to avoid the sweep. You have to. And for them to, I mean, they stood in their own way of getting that out of the way. To salvage that game, all you had to do was make some, not even semi-difficult plays, make the easiest of easy plays. And pretty much every time Atlanta scored, you handed it to them. Whether it was in the second inning, with Manzardo, the ball drops in the infield. Angel Martinez, several mistakes in the infield. One where you just grab a ball and throw it normally to the first baseman. Don't pull Manzardo off the bag. You get out of that inning. I think the game plays out in a completely different fashion. That was aggravating. Maybe the most aggravating thing for fans was watching a couple of guys get on base via a walk, and then here comes Stephen Kwan to lay down a bunt, and it pops up, and you've gone from a guy that can't find the strike zone, settles in, boom, they're done, inning over. And I think that got under the skin more than anything else in that game. Boy, the Guardians just killed themselves in the finale took what should have been a win that you take, Zach, and you and I aren't having this world is falling, sky is crumbling conversation. We'd say, you had a bad weekend, but you salvaged the finale, and you're still in a fine position. Losing that game felt like a massive blow.
Yeah, I mean, their salvage Sunday win, as you like to say, was sitting for them on a platter, and they said, no thanks, we're full. It was, you don't have margin for error because you didn't play well enough for the first few months of the season. So you're right, like a sweep is just a crushing blow at this point, and that's what happened. And the bunt, I don't get it because he's a skilled enough hitter where there are plenty of potential outcomes in that at bat that result in the runners moving anyway. So why do you need to bunt? Like, there are things that can go wrong if you bunt. That's the thing. When people argue that bunts are okay in certain situations, and like I'm a 99%er here with this. There is a 1% of the time I can get behind a bunt. If it's Austin Hedges bunting with the top of the order coming up and you're down 1 and it's first and second, nobody out, fine. Though I'd prefer maybe you just pinch hit for Hedges and let that pinch hitter swing away. But, there's a once in a blue moon opportunity where I can get behind a bunt. But in this situation, a bunt is not foolproof. That's what people who are arguing for it don't get, is that they think like, oh, sack bunt means it's like it's you're holding up 4 fingers because you're intentionally walking someone. No, you have to actually get the bunt down and hope the defense throws to the base you want them to throw to. And so, what is the percent chance that the bunt is going to work out perfectly? What is the percent chance that just Quan swinging away is going to move the runners anyway, or result in a hit? Or result in a run scoring.
Forget that. I actually don't even want him to swing the bat initially. I want Quan to do what he's done his entire career, which is make the pitcher earn it in that at bat.
And that's
not
the
just
other thing.
give it away.
A pitcher who can't find the strike zone too, you're just gonna grant them this gift. So yeah, I mean it was like the perfect cap to that game because the game was just one self-inflicted thing after another. But you have a 4-1 lead in the middle innings and you're looking to salvage a series like there's no excuse, period. But then the way they booted the ball and played sloppy and couldn't deliver a timely hit, they deserve to lose that game. And I think that's an indictment on the season where this team that is so far from perfect has also played so far from perfect for a lot of the season. The defense was ugly early as well. This has never been a team that you're like, oh yeah, surely they'll get the big hit to knock in a couple runs here. Like it's been a struggle for much of the season. And that's why I think, when you talk about the truth lying somewhere in the middle, I don't think they're going to lose 7 more in a row and go back to being the team that loses 10 and is 8 games under 500. But like what you said, the 22-8 stretch wasn't going to last for another 2 months either. Like, there are still, you look at this lineup and it's like, yeah, like this is a lineup that's going to go score 1 run over 2 games at times. It's just not good enough. And the pitching is, like, it's been good. It's been so much better the last couple months, but it's not perfect. Like, it's got its warts too. So I think it's just an imperfect roster that, didn't afford itself an opportunity to be able to boot the ball or to have these kind of mistakes, whether mental or physical. And, you look up and it's crazy. I mean, they were tied in the loss column on Friday morning with the Yankees, and now you're 3.5 back.
Well, the playoff odds we were talking about, I think it was on our Patreon show, was over 30%. Now it's down to 15, which is not done, but it's certainly making life much more difficult to then chase the teams that had their bad stretch. So you had your great stretch, they had their bad stretch. Are you going to believe that their bad stretch is going to continue for a little longer? It's going to need to, or you're going to need to play perfect down the stretch, and you can't have instances where you get swept at home. I know it's silly because in 162 games, I'm making the argument that one game here is so massive, but it really is given everything that's happened to this point. And in seeing them make the mistakes, I'm not excusing Angel Martinez. I'm not excusing Kyle Manzardo letting a ball drop in the infield. I'm not excusing these things. But I think it's more frustrating watching guys like Stephen Kwan make the mental mistake because we know he's so much smarter than that. Now, anybody, even a young player, even a veteran player, is capable of making a mistake. Profar drops a fly ball in left field that gave you some runs, and he made up for it later by hitting the 2-run home run to put them in front, right? So he found a way to come back and make up for it. When I see a young player make mistakes, I understand that's part of the growth process, taking the good with the bad. When Stephen Kwan does something so egregious in this situation, now, maybe he gets out, maybe nothing different happens, but why would you do that? Why would you make life difficult or make life easy when the pitcher is putting they're setting up their own booby trap, and then you're helping them out of it? It just doesn't make much sense to me, and it's frustrating because I know Kwan is smarter than that, and he knows he's smarter than that. Watch his reaction after he pops it up and says, "What the hell was I just doing?" Agreed.
And I can't even, he went through a rough patch, right? Like, it was
more than a rough patch, yeah.
He's had his struggles, but he's also had 3 consecutive multi-hit games. So if I'm Stephen Kwan or his hitting coach or his manager, I want to do everything I can to not get in his way. This guy could be heating up. That is enormous for this offense, for this team. And I'm trying to make sure that continues. I don't want him laying down a bunt. I want him being the guy that is taking the swings. That is potentially, I mean, what were the odds there that he delivers an RBI, the game-tying single? Like,
decent.
Yeah, especially for if a pitcher is struggling to throw strikes and Kwan can get ahead in the count. I mean, it's set up on a tee for you.
Now, I understand in watching the body language there, that was not a case where he's turning, here's an out. All I'm concerned with is moving the runners up. Part of the game of Stephen Kwan is an ability to, on occasion, surprise the defense with something like that. It's not so much the thought process behind it that gets me. It's the timing of it, the game situation. It's everything that comes together. I know there has been some conversation about what the role of a manager is in this situation when a player, this is not the first time somebody has come up and laid down a bunt, and it's one of the best players on the team, and in a critical situation and they're giving up an out, and we all say, shouldn't the manager be pulling these players aside, even if the call doesn't come from the bench, which it often does not. I know you're trying to do the right thing here and you think moving the runners up, but given where we're at in the batting order and who you are, the most important thing is that you try to come through with a base hit here, and that's all we're focused on. Where is the manager's role in this, do you think?
It's tough because it's not something... Like, I don't know if they have a sign that says, like, do not bunt or we will DFA you. It's almost something that has to be pounded into your best hitters' heads just naturally, right? Like, Jose Ramirez is never going to bunt in that situation if that's him approaching the plate. And I'm not saying Kwan is the same level of hitter, but Kwan, it shouldn't even cross his mind either. So that's the thing is, your better hitters Kyle Manzardo wouldn't lay down a bunt there, would he? So your better hitter should just know. And if you need to offer them reminders, then you have to do that so that once they just step it to the plate in that situation, it doesn't even cross their mind. I don't think the third base coach can hold up a sign that says, "Don't bunt here, Steven." That's just gotta come instinctually. And it didn't in that situation.
Well, I think more.
Part of it, Andres Gimenez used to do this constantly, even when he had his really good season at the plate. And to me, it just screamed of a guy who maybe didn't quite buy into the hitter he was that season. In later seasons when he couldn't hit, it made sense why he would think that, right?
Sure. I'm not feeling great at the plate here. I want to contribute. Maybe I can contribute by surprising the defense with a well-placed single down the line. And if nothing else, I move the runners up and I've contributed. And maybe that's what's going through Kwan's mind. When he picks up the leg and then turns, this is not a casual sacrifice like you'd saw National League pitchers do several years ago, or Austin Hedges maybe laying down a bunt. This is him
but the
trying.
Problem is you're not catching anyone sleeping when it's first and second and no outs. That's going to cross the mind of defensively.
Even so, the defense is celebrating. We just put two guys on via walk. Guy can't find the strike zone, and then first pitch we're just here's an out, and then the guy locks it in. Sometimes that's all it takes for a reliever to then feel like the sky isn't falling. It's not this avalanche of can't find the zone, and now there's guys on base, and I'm out of the stretch, and you've instantly taken that off the board. So it's the timing here that really is just it's brutal.
So what's the worst thing that can happen in that situation? Kwan grounds into a double play?
Yeah.
Which the odds aren't great because he also could beat it out. But let's say he grounds into a double play. What percentage of people watching this game are furious that Kwan didn't bunt instead? Pretty small.
Nobody.
Nobody. Maybe a couple people with 20/20 hindsight who are just jerks, but otherwise nobody. And so that tells you everything you need to know. Swing away, man.
Yeah, he's one of your better hitters. But here's where I find this manager conversation interesting. I do think there has to be some trust in your veteran players, and Stephen Kwan has elevated himself to that level. Being able to occasionally surprise a defense with a well-placed bunt is part of his game. What I would get frustrated, you're saying Kyle Manzardo. That's not part of Kyle Manzardo's offensive repertoire. He's not going to the toolbox to pull out the well-placed single. Did you see that guy trying to go to third base earlier in the game? I mean, he always looks like he's carrying a piano on his back.
Okay, but then
coming from someone that has lived his life that way.
Wouldn't it surprise the defense then if he laid one down?
Sure, but again, this is not something that
Kwan's
he's
not surprising
crafted.
anyone when it's first and second and nobody out.
But still, even a well-placed bunt, even if the defense is semi-expecting it, just because of the way that he can carry his bat, he can put it somewhere that the defense isn't expecting.
And they could throw to third base.
My point is, I don't want to. I'm not forgiving the bunt. Clearly, I'm yelling about it.
You love bunting.
What I'm saying is the manager, you have to have some trust here, and your players are going to make the right call. I do not. The thing I really don't want Stephen Vogt to do is start telling Stephen Kwan in these situations, don't do this, do that. You need to be able to trust your players. And in this case, we need to put the pressure on who made the choice, and that's Stephen Kwan. For Vogt, I want him to tell, I don't want him to be standing there, as you're indicating, with a sign that says don't bunt in this situation. Maybe later in the at-bat, it might actually call for it, depending on where the defense goes. Maybe the third baseman moves off the line. Maybe Stephen Kwan sees something. I don't want to take that out of his toolbox because I think it is part of his toolbox. But again, to go to that tool when the at-bat is just starting and you've just walked two guys is what is frustrating to me. I don't think this is where you would put you look down the bench and see Stephen Vogt and say, what are you doing here? No, I think we need to look at Stephen Kwan and say, what are you doing here? And I don't know how much of a conversation really needs to happen after the fact, because looking at the body language here, looks like Stephen Kwan realized I effed up. I effed up pretty big here in this situation.
Yeah, I don't think he needs timeout or detention. He just needs a reminder that dude, you're our second best hitter.
I'm willing
that
to.
right there
I'm
is-
willing to bet that conversation happened. That reminder that this is what you're here to do.
That situation right there calls for our second best hitter to hit. There was a lot of and he's also, Kwan's an analytical type of dude. Like, he's thinking through the various scenarios that are at play, and it was just an oversight. Like, there are a lot of scenarios there that result in something positive happening. And I don't think a bunt was high up on the list, even if he's bunting, trying to reach base. Yeah. And then you're right. He knows it. Like, look at the reaction he had. So I think the unfortunate thing is that happened in a game where they squandered a ton of other opportunities on both sides of the ball. And it happened in a series where they desperately needed a win to salvage it. And it happened in a season where they didn't afford themselves any margin for error to be able to get away with getting swept in a semi-self-inflicted way.
Right. Look, I mean, the game here, microcosm of the season and where they're at. The Kwan bunt, putting that down, didn't lose them the game. The one drop on the infield didn't lose them the game. Angel Martinez throwing the ball away, what could have ended the inning, and the rally the Braves had would have ended it, didn't lose the game. All these things didn't lose the game to themselves. Even giving up the 2-run home run didn't necessarily lose the game, but it's all of these things together that you've now created this situation where you've got to be more perfect than that, and that's sort of where they're at now. This losing a series or even getting swept by the Braves doesn't kill their postseason chances, but it's part of this bigger picture that we're running out of days on the calendar. That's what they're up against. There's only so much time every time you put yourself further and further in the hole, even when you fought like hell to get back out of the hole. Well, everyone else has played their worst stretch too. So isn't the pendulum going to swing the other way for those teams too? It's why it's critical that you need to play. Mm-hmm. You need to be able to at least salvage the series and not get swept at home.
Yeah, I mean, it's they close to within 5 games of the Tigers, but you knew the Tigers were going to rebound at some point too, and so it's why you don't fall into that big of a hole in the first place. Yeah. I think that's the bottom line. And now you're 8.5 back of them. I think, is it fair to say the division is officially over?
I would say, yeah.
Even with 6 games left against them. So now the wild card, and it's tricky because the Red Sox, Yankees, and Mariners all essentially have the same record, and those are the 3 wild card teams at the moment. So you're chasing all 3 of them, and it's like one's going to get hot, one's going to get cold, one's going to stay neutral, and you just have to focus on yourself and just try to win as many games as you can. And the ironic thing is you're going to play all those teams, not the Yankees, but you got games with the Red Sox, you've got games with the Mariners, you've got the Rays a bunch coming up, so you've got the Royals. There's still an opportunity to control your own destiny in a way, but you're going to have to play way better. You can't be making those kinds of mistakes.
The starting pitching was a big part in getting them back to being in this position. We've given all sorts of love to Slade Ciccone, but we've also offered the caveat here that underlying metrics would suggest there's another swing of that pendulum in the direction you don't want on the horizon for him, at least potentially, because he was out pitching the metrics by a lot. And are we seeing maybe just the regression here? Because this is still a guy that has been surviving with expected numbers that would suggest he might be borderline sending him back to the minor leagues, but he kept getting results. And we've talked about this. It's tough to yell and scream about a guy that's having actual production and success and say, well, it's not actually going that well. You want to give him the benefit of the doubt while he's getting that, while still realizing there might be some worse days on the horizon that he's going to need to make some adjustments for.
Yeah, we've talked about Carl Willis's teaching approach here and there on this podcast, and I think this is a good example of it. And this is my view from afar. I don't know the conversations they've specifically had in the last couple of weeks, but I know that the most effective way of instruction to Willis, and he didn't invent this, but is you want the pitcher to believe that he has unearthed the change, the tweak, the key to his success, right? Just to get more buy-in, to get that, to make a substantial change. You need the pitcher to see the change himself and unlock it that way. And it's tough to do that when a pitcher's thriving. Even if, like, Carl Willis is studying the metrics when Ciccone is just looking the part and breezing through 6 innings every time. And Willis has got, the TrackMan data there, and he's probably like, okay, well, we'll see how long this can continue. But if he goes at that point and he tells Ciccone, look, you need to change this, this, and this, Slade's going to be like, bro, you see I got a 3.30 ERA and I'm averaging a strikeout per inning. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's like when Shane Bieber was just cruising through Double-A in 2017, they came to him and they said, look, you need a changeup. And he's like, why? Look at my numbers. No one touches me down here. They're like, we get that. But you're going to be in the majors before you know it, and you need a changeup or something moving the other direction if you want to succeed up there. And in the minors, you don't have the leeway a lot of times to be like, well, let's wait till Bieber struggles in Double-A, and then because his command was so good and his stuff was great, he never struggled in the minors,
never.
Right? So in the major leagues, it's obviously different, and sometimes you have to wait until there is some adversity to present the changes that you probably needed to make all along. And so I think with Slade, it's like now is the time where you'd be like, hey, let's change this mechanical thing. Let's change how you grip this. Let's tweak how you're approaching these hitters. And that's when you hope to see the metrics and the results both move in a positive direction. The metrics look like they looked when he was pitching well. So I would think that if you change some of the input here, everything is gonna look a little bit better. I'm not smart enough to know exactly what those changes need to be, but that's why Carl Willis is as good as there is.
Every expected stat is as pretty much as low as you can find. The expected earned run average way, way down at the bottom in the 4th percentile at 569. It's not very good. The expected batting average 289, and we saw that because he was giving up so much hard contact. But when it's right at a fielder, and the guy's going back to the dugout, you're right. How do you tell a guy, or what do you even tell them at that point? What do you even want them to change? I don't know that I would even want them to, other than maybe seeking small things on the margins, making sure we're not walking guys and creating bad situations for ourselves, so that if you give up the hard contact and it does find a gap, at least make sure, the old Josh Tomlin method, that you didn't contribute to it by putting guys on base yourself. And so just make sure you continue to pound the zone, throw strikes, get deep into games. That's what we're concerned with right now, because I don't think you can make any massive sweeping changes other than maybe repertoire changes, maybe just some sequencing small things to perhaps make you a little bit less predictable, or anything else. Just if you feel better about a certain pitch right now, I can't find my grip on this or that, so maybe we have to adjust through the season. But I don't expect him to change his arm slot or to change, massive things about his pitch mix in the middle of the season. It's just way too difficult to do it.
Right. That's the key is this is essentially his rookie season, right? This is his. I know he's not going to end up being in the big leagues the full year because he was injured at the start, but for all intents and purposes, this is like his first full major league season, and it's in a new organization, and an organization where, again, as we've said, like, he picked up the phone to learn he was traded to Cleveland and was like, okay, cool, you guys are great at pitching development, right? I'm a willing student. Let's coordinate here. And so there's a lot of changes that have already happened anyway. And you're right, it's tough to make dramatic changes during the season. That's why I give Gavin Williams so much credit for how he's turned things around. But a lot of what you're doing, or what might need to be done, would normally take place in the offseason. That's what just happened last offseason, right? So it's tough to change that. And when he's going so well and you reach this point in the season, you're like, what are you going to do? You're going to try to overhaul something for his last 5 starts? And like, what kind of conclusions can you draw from that anyway? Like, you wouldn't draw anything from the first 1 or 2 or maybe even 3. So it's not even worth it at that point.
You're just trying to duct tape things together to get to the end of the season to get the best results you can, even if that's not long-term changes.
So for someone who's essentially going, like, if you're treating him basically like a rookie, then you have to take the good, and you get to the end of the season, you point to that good, you point to the metrics that didn't align, and you try to figure out with him where was the disconnect there and how do we get all of that stuff to align in the positive. And then you go and you attack with video and, you give him an assignment over the offseason and you come to spring training and hope that it looks how you want it to look. But that's really tough to do during the season when he's, coming back from an injury and then just going through all this for the first time and succeeding. And, there's only so much you can do. So, yeah, I think he's, I know there's 6 weeks left in the season. I don't know what these last 6 weeks are going to hold, and I think there's going to be plenty to talk about just if they can stay in the race or not. There are a lot of people on this team that I'm really excited to talk about looking forward. He is one of them. If you think about what the strengths of this team might be next year and how important it might be for the rotation to be one of those strengths, I mean, he is quite the pendulum here where it's like that rotation could look really good if he looks really good, or it could be a huge concern if we see more of what we've seen here.
Fascinating thing is there's so many pitchers that are trying to get to the same end result, being a front of the rotation starter, or at least a guy that you're comfortable giving the ball to every 5 days. No one's questioning their roster spot. You're capable of going out and giving 6 strong innings every time you take the ball. They're all trying to get to that point, but they all are in different spots. So Ciccone, he's been there before this year, but doesn't look the same as how Joey Cantillo has been getting to those results. And even with Cantillo, he's not a finished product by any stretch of the imagination, as evidenced by the fact that they sent him to the minors, partially fueled, I'm sure, just by wanting to get another reliever into the bullpen. But also they want to make sure that the Cantillo can just get up here and attack the zone and throw enough strikes. He misses enough bats.
Why can't he do that at the major league level? Why does Ciccone get to work through everything and Cantillo does not?
I think you're 100% on the money here. There's been a lot of calls for Cantillo to go down, that people want to see Parker Messick, and I don't disagree with wanting to see Parker Messick, and we can even spend some time on him coming up in a few minutes. He looks like a guy that's probably ready to ascend to start to answer some questions at the major league level. There's only so much you can do to answer those questions in the minor leagues. Cantillo and Ciccone's like been sort of elevated up here, and Cantillo has been the guy that everyone has pointed to and said, well, he needs to go to the minors. I'm more encouraged by what I've seen from Cantillo in the majors this year. I like the fact that he can, even with a guy that doesn't throw 95, he lives at 91, 92, but with the secondary stuff that he has, can miss so many bats and get so many strikeouts and chase. It's just what's been the constant thing with Cantillo. Throw strikes. Don't get yourself beat up by having these high pitch counts, and you've got to exit with 4 2/3 innings. You have better stuff, and you are going to give up some hard contact. We know that that's going to happen, but you also have the ability to get out of this stuff with your swing and miss and your strikeouts. So I'm not surprised given where they were at in the rotation, and I think maybe just the alignment of who might be in line. You're
Sure.
making faces right now, but I thought there was more to it than just we actually believe more in Ciccone than we do Cantillo at this point. I don't believe that was the case. At least it shouldn't be the case, because I actually feel it was the other way around.
So the question was posed to assistant GM Matt Foreman on Sunday morning. Literally, word for word, it was because the question with Cantillo is, well, we want him to throw his pitches in the zone more. Why can't he do that in the major leagues? Why does he have to go to the minor leagues to do that? And the answer was a bunch of mumbo-jumbo vagueness that didn't answer the question, because that's Cleveland's front office for you on the record. But it's not about Cantillo to me. We've known that this was the issue. It's been the case all year. We've heard them say that about him since April. His chase rate is in the first percentile in the majors. That's as low as it gets. And what does that tell you? It tells you that people are not going to offer at that changeup and the curveball below the zone. So he has to throw them in the strike zone. And to throw them in the strike zone effectively, you got to be ahead in the count, and he's not ahead in the count enough. 5th percentile in walk rate. I get it. Like the what he needs to improve on is very clear and obvious. I also know that he has gotten by despite that shortcoming.
Well, how do you have 22% chase rate, first percentile, and get 89th percentile in whiff. It should tell you that stuff, when it's in the zone, people are going to swing and miss at that.
Correct. And the big thing to me is, like, he knows what the message is. Like, he knows what he needs. I don't know that going to AAA and just throwing in the strike zone is going to help him. And even if it will, he gave up 1 run in each of his last 2 starts. Like, he's been pretty good. His last 5 starts, he has 16 walks in 25 and a third innings. But he has a 3.55 ERA. So it also hasn't, like, crushed him. And if you want to say, well, but then the walks limit him to, like, 5 innings every time out. Okay, Logan Allen just threw 107 pitches and couldn't complete 5 innings the other day. Gavin Williams threw 75 pitches the other day through 3 innings. So, like, he's not the only one with that issue. To me, it's not about Cantillo. It's about they want to see Parker Messick. Mm-hmm. And I don't know for sure that that's going to happen. They haven't reached a final conclusion on that as of, Sunday evening, but it would make sense if that was the case, and they want to see Messick on Wednesday because they didn't need to. They have a question mark at starter on Wednesday. They didn't need to have a question mark. That was they did that on their own. They created that issue. That could have been Cantillo again, and instead it could it be Colby Allard, I guess, and you go with the bullpen game like. That doesn't seem like the best way to attack things when you've got 6 weeks left in the season and you're fighting for a wild card spot. But
yeah, and you're already lined up. It's not like you have to do some roster Olympics here. You have the
you have a
spot,
40-man spot,
right?
Yep.
You have the spot on the roster. It's the perfect time, even if this is not a long-term thing. Wouldn't this be the perfect time to get his feet wet, get him up here, start the process of seeing if this is one of your rotation members next year?
For sure, and you're going to see John Means in September. He's got a few more rehab starts left, but it would make sense if you say, okay, let's see Parker Messick 3 times, and then we'll move on to John Means. Whether Messick's great or not, you just want him to get a taste of the big leagues, and you want to get a look at him, and maybe he just pitches in the big leagues for a few times through the rotation and then goes back to Columbus with more confidence. Like there's a lot of good that can come out of this. So that to me would make the most sense. It's unfortunate for Cantillo that he's on the other end of this equation because I didn't think he pitched poorly enough to necessitate a trip back to Columbus. Also, the run he gave up happened after some Johnny Manziel wannabe jumped onto the field and had to get tased by cops, and that whole ordeal took like 10 minutes. So,
if you're going to do that.
By the way, Cantillo after the game was like, he said all the right things. He's like, oh, that stuff happens from time to time, and you just have to like push through it and throw
that
strikes.
Stuff happens
like,
time to time.
I don't know if that happens from time to time. I know you're from Hawaii. I don't know if like this happens on the Big Island.
It's a weekend game. You just have to expect that somebody's going to come out of the stands. If you're going to do that, and again, the Selby's Godcast does not condone these actions, and please do not follow through on anything I'm about to say. If you're going to do that, do it to stop Stephen Kwan from bunting. Run out into the field after the guys walk the first 2 guys in the inning. That's when you need to do it. Okay, so just be strategic. Same way, I don't want to remove the bunt completely from Stephen Kwan's repertoire, but I certainly want him to use it strategically. Same thing with going on the field. Use it strategically to improve the Guardians' chances to win, not hinder it. What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, there's entertainers and there's competitors, and I understand that, but that guy was neither.
As far as Messick goes, I mean, you're seeing everything he's doing in the minor leagues. He's answering every question. It's looking at some of his expected numbers, just where he sits among prospects at AAA, and the 83rd percentile in expected weighted on base average, 79th percentile in expected batting average, 77th in expected slugging percentage. So guys, they're not scoring him up. They're not doing a ton of damage there. As far as swinging strike rate, 74th percentile there. I mean, answering every question you'd want him to do at the AAA level. There's only so much you can do other than just continue to put up results, prove that your arm is healthy, prove that you can go deep into games. And if you can cross all those things off, the velocity looks good. Certainly is interesting that he's a guy that can touch into the somewhat upper 90s. I think I saw max for about 97 miles per hour. But he doesn't live there all the time, so he just goes and gets it when he needs to. But he's not one of those guys that wants to live at his max velocity all the time. I'm just interested. I want to see more of Messick. I want to see if this is a guy, again, that I'm going to be penciling into the rotation for next year, or if he's still more of a, well, if you get there, that's great. It's an added bonus. I don't know. At this point, I'm thinking pencil that guy into the rotation, and it would make a lot of sense to start that process now.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to have this conversation now, we can. But I'm looking ahead to next year, and I'm saying, okay, I've got Williams and Bybee, and if I'm the Guardians, I want more from both of those guys too. But they certainly would have rotation spots locked down. I would think Ciccone would as well. But again, that's a guy you want to see improve. And then after that, Logan Allen, Messick, Cantillo, Khal Stephen. You know, there's who am I forgetting? There's opportunity. John Means. Like there's a lot of room for someone if they want to take a spot and run with it. There's opportunity. And so yeah, Messick is as intriguing as any of those options for the last couple spots. You know, maybe they go trade for someone too or something, but definitely, it would be very valuable and behoove both him and the team if they can just get him a few starts here. And I don't think it's also he's not replacing someone who, like, I know I just said Cantillo didn't deserve to go down, but I don't think it's going to hurt your chances of winning to let this guy get his feet wet.
No, I don't think so. I think he's probably equal footing with some of the other guys that are up here. And also, if you phrase it the right way they have in the past, where if it's almost laid out to be a short-term thing, then there's no immediate pressure of, I've got to pitch well enough to show that I'm going to be up here for a long time and I got to defend my roster spot. But if when you tell him, hey, we have this short-term opportunity, we don't know how long this is going to be, but this is not, how long you stay here may not be decided just based just on how you pitch. Take that pressure off of his plate. And it's why I like when you can find instances like when you have a doubleheader and the send back to Columbus is already built in, so there's no pressure there. It's come up, get your feet wet, help us win, and then you've done everything we need you to do. There's no other pressure here at play. So I think this is not quite that, but it's kind of close. Speaking of pitching and young guys that are going to be part of the future, perhaps in the near future, remember the last time Josh Hartle gave up a run and you were a year younger? You remember that? I only bring him up because
I'm so old, my memory is gone.
I only bring it up. I mean, he's been phenomenal. And I even went back a little further. His last 12 outings, 150 ERA over 60 innings down at Lake County. I only bring it up because he's been on the stretch. I saw the team tweet out about it. But I remember a few weeks ago, maybe it was a little bit longer than that, when we were talking about Ortiz and Clase situation, and someone said, well, rest in peace, the Lindor trade tree. That's so fast. Have we put too much pressure on Josh Hartle now? It's like, you used to be hey, remember they also got another guy in that trade with Ortiz, and maybe he turns into something someday. Now we're all like, and what are you going to do? I don't know what happened to Ortiz.
He has a 33-inning scoreless streak going, which, we always say, like, don't scout the stat line. Scout that one. That's you can't twist that any other way. There's a lot to like here. There's a lot to like. He's given up 2 home runs all season, so that's a good sign. The strikeout rate's healthy. The walk rate's fine. Like, it's interesting. He's got size, so like you do also wonder just what the stuff looks like when all is said and done. Yeah, I mean, I worry that the Emmanuel Clase trade tree is officially over. That's the one that dates back to like the 80s. I think Jerry Dubzinski started that one, maybe. You had Kluber was in that, and David Justice, and Kenny Lofton, and Eddie Taubensee. That one's historic. So yeah, you want this one to keep going. They have the farm system is. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but like the farm system's really intriguing, and the unfortunate part of this is we could be a prolific podcast that just focused only on Cleveland prospects, but the team is just good enough to make us still need to care about the big league things happening. And, they have this guy who's on a Hall of Fame trajectory, and they might want to win some games when he's still under contract. So, you don't want to spend your days being excited about Josh Hartle and Ralphie Velasquez, who, by the way, is should get called up to the majors tomorrow, maybe. Have you seen what he's done lately? It's insane. He's got a 2,000 OPS in a week at AA. But there's the timeline here. The timing's tough. There's a lot to we're going to see a lot of intriguing kids over the next couple of years get called up, unless they're all on the Chase DeLauter build back up program.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We'll
get there.
But what they should do is probably trade some of these guys for proven talent.
What?
Are you sure? We have all off-season. Our off-season content's going to be better than the
It's going to be fire.
Content.
Absolutely fire. Have you seen those videos where they find the correlations that don't? Like, guy's named Steve and crime in Connecticut or something, and it doesn't really align, but it somehow does. I don't think we have to look too far in minor league either stats or videos getting tweeted out by a Guardians member and the team not playing well. There's always a correlation. Bad weekend against the Braves. Here's Travis Bazana and Ralphie Velasquez. You just see all the highlights blowing up my phone. Just a reminder, hey, these guys are on the way. Just don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. Don't look at this series against the Braves. Pay attention to what Akron, Columbus, Lake County, all of these teams are doing. Speaking of Columbus, pitching guy that used to be part of this rotation, headed back to Columbus, Tristan McKenzie. What's the situation here with McKenzie?
He pitched a Tristan McKenzie-esque inning on Sunday for Columbus where he didn't give up an earned run, but he walked two. One of them scored on I think Cooper Ingle made a bad throw and didn't strike anybody out. I think they're going to let him pitch out of the bullpen in Columbus for the next month, and who knows, where that goes. It's tough. They've liked what they've seen from him lately. He was the fastball. He was throwing 96 on Sunday, 93 to 96, but there is a little bit of a bump there, pitching in relief, and it's the same thing. Attack the strike zone. That's it. Just throw strikes, get ahead. You have nothing to lose at this point, right?
Yeah, legitimately.
But, that even proved a little bit tricky when he was pitching in Arizona against teenagers. So, we'll see where he goes with this. But I was told earlier this year he can be a minor league free agent at the end of the season. So I don't know where his future will take him. And I think, maybe this is an important month for him to just try to end the season, a really rotten season, really rotten couple of seasons on a positive note.
I'm sure he will still find an organization that takes a liking to him when you're throwing that hard still. Initially, I would say, where else would you want to be other than the organization that's familiar with you, knows your complete medical history, they've seen you since you were a youngster. The only thing that I could think why you would leave Cleveland, if let's say Cleveland is interested in this reunion continuing, is maybe you think, I just want to get in front of somebody else. I just want to see, I just want somebody else to see me, not because I distrust Cleveland, because clearly they have enough evidence of they know what the hell they're doing with pitching, but maybe somewhere along the line somebody will see something that Cleveland is not. Or I'll just hear something that resonates with me different than with Cleveland. I don't know. It's the most confusing, confounding, whatever other C word you want to find that just describes Tristan's not that way, you sicko. I was thinking like confuzzled, yeah.
It'll be fascinating to see if he doesn't stick with Cleveland, which team picks him up, right? Like if it's the Angels, I'm going to say like, oh, not too optimistic there. If it's the Rays, I'm going to be like, oh boy, Cy Young conversations back on.
Real quick before we wrap up, let's go through some rapid fire, some updates of some names that I think people would want to know. Juan Brito, currently 6 weeks post-injury following a right hamstring avulsion. Continues to progress well and is meeting appropriate strength, range of motion, running, fielding, and hitting milestones. Expected time frame to return to play on this type of injury is 8 to 12 weeks. You think we see Brito, and not even in the major leagues, but I just like return to action of some sort?
Yeah, my guess would be he and DeLauter are on similar programs where it's, can you just get healthy enough to pop up in some games at the end of the AAA schedule? But who knows? They're going to be super careful.
So frustrating. This year was lined up for him perfectly. Khal Stephen, progressing well following the diagnosis of right shoulder impingement. Khal threw his first live BP on Friday, August 15th, and will throw a 2-inning live BP in the upcoming week. He will continue to progress in his game activity from there. Do you think, other than just making sure you're going into the offseason healthy, is that, like we've seen that in the past with a number of pitchers come back, it's not so much we want you to get back into game action, we want you to build up your inning total, although that does benefit you next year, because if you reach 120 innings this year, then you feel like you can build to 140 or 150 innings the next year, as opposed to, well, we hit 100 innings, that was the plateau, and now it's only 110 or 120. So you get to build on it a little bit more. But how much is just, I want that guy to be 100% healthy going into the offseason so that there's no, we start the offseason with the throwing program as we continue and hit the offseason running. This is your actual healthy offseason. I want you to attack it that way.
Yeah, I remember Shane Bieber did it twice in Cleveland, where he could have just been out for the year, but he came back to make a couple of starts in September just to kind of what you're saying, like a launching off point. Steven's supposed to throw 2 innings in a live BP setting this week. So it's the same thing. It's like maybe he gets back and starts a couple of games there at the end for Akron, but there's a path for him. If he winds up back at Akron to start next season, like he could pitch in the major leagues next year. That's their belief. Whether he makes 2 starts in Akron in September or not, I don't know that changes anything. But I think for the player, sometimes it is just like peace of mind, knowing for sure you're going into the offseason healthy and you can have a normal winter.
Yeah, you want them to feel strong enough that you're not considering major inning restrictions next year because he didn't quite get to as many innings as you have liked this year. So there's that benefit, just making sure you're going into the offseason strong enough. Then there's this guy, Chase DeLauter. Currently 3 weeks post-operative following a surgery to remove the hook of the hamate bone in his right hand. Responding well to his rehab program and has resumed baseball activity. Typical return to play timeframes following similar cases, 45 to 60 days.
I think it's the same as Brito, where it's like best case scenario is he's in the lineup for a few games at the end there for Columbus. But I think I don't know where he lives in the offseason. I'm trying to remember. Maybe I'm guessing he's going to spend a lot of time in Arizona and bubble wrap, like extra blankets at night when he sleeps, bubble wrap during the day, and let him out, on opening day, or if you want to manipulate some service time a few weeks after that, and then let him go in the big leagues. We don't need to play these games next year. He doesn't need to spend his season on the AAA injured list. Just protect at all costs.
Let's let him
you need that bat.
Burst through that wall like the Shockmaster. All right, some guys that are more so names that, hey, remember that guy? Will Brennan, remember? He's now 9 weeks post-elbow ulnar collateral ligament repair. Hench's is 11 months. Ben Lively, 10 weeks post-operative. Andrew Walters, 9 weeks post-operative. So that's just an update on where they're at. And then the name that, 2 or 3 years ago, we thought would be leading this rotation at this point, Daniel Espino, 17 months post-operative following a revision right shoulder anterior capsule repair. Following a deload period from throwing, Daniel has resumed mound activity and is throwing bullpens at the Player Development Complex in Goodyear, Arizona. Good to just see his name attached to anything that's not major setback. See him again in another 2 years.
He and Hentges are really interesting to me because obviously Hentges has just been on the major league injured list all year on the 60 days, so he doesn't count against a 40-man spot. And, you know, he missed a season and a half because of shoulder surgery. I don't expect him to come back and throw 70 innings next season, but the goal is for him to be healthy coming to spring training, and it'll be interesting to see just how I assume you'll slow play it. And it's important to remember that, you know, Trevor Stephen's a good example. Like, you come off a major injury, and it's not a guarantee. It's everyone says, you know, people couldn't understand why Tristan McKenzie didn't have Tommy John surgery. And part of the concern is, like, there is no guarantee you get it all back. And, you know, we can debate till the end of time what he should have done. And he knows that it wasn't an easy answer then. It's not one now. But, you know, Espino it's I can't quit him. Like, I need to see what he looks like.
Why would you
spring.
want to? Yeah.
They've kept him on the 40-man roster. So at some point you got to unveil the Kraken, right? Release the Kraken.
I'm hoping, yeah.
Let's see that in spring.
Never going to give that hope
how
up.
hard he throws and if he can stay healthy. Put him in bubble wrap too. All these guys.
If he throws one great pitch, I'm in. I am so in. That's all it's going to take. I'll bring back that unicorn status, and we'll all be excited again.
It'll have been 4 years.
Happy birthday, man.
Thanks. I'm old.